we are going to welcome two-time national champion. Think he got snubbed on Coach of the Year. Think he should have been the Coach of the Year.
He's our Coach of the Year.
He is our Coach of the Year, and he's such a high priority for us that I dressed up for him. I wore my button-down collared shirt. I wanted to look good for him. Coach Jay Johnson joins the show. He's been hustling ever since the World Series. Work never ends. He never sleeps. But welcome back to the show, Coach. Congratulations on the national championship. Congratulations.
Thank you. Let's go.
I appreciate you for making our show better because in giving us content all year. It's a lot better for us, selfishly, when y'all win it because it gives us a lot more to talk about over the course of it. So I appreciate that. I know you do that just for us.
Yeah, that's what he's done.
Yeah.
That's what he thinks about.
I know you do that just for us. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, glad I could contribute to the show.
Yeah, because you haven't done enough for us over the last 4 years at all. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I think it's a little weird you're dressing up for me, but let's go.
Lloyd convinced me.
I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah. Coach, let's jump into this. Obviously, we're going to talk about the World Series. But before we get into the recap of the season and kind of the things that you're proud of and you want to highlight, let's jump into I guess what's next, right? You obviously have the draft coming up. You have a lot of guys that are probably going to get drafted extremely high and guys that are going to be moving and coming in. You have a lot of recruits that are very highly rated that you're going to have to kind of monitor. You've done that over the last few years. What's the outlook on the draft and guys that you have spoken to and guys that are obviously here that are going to leave? Do you kind of have a good feel right now on guys that you believe that are going to be gone or coming back?
Yeah, it's obviously a really fluid situation, and you can't win a national championship unless you're moving guys on to pro baseball. And for the third year in a row, we'll be moving a lot on. 2 years ago, breaking an SEC record for number of players drafted. Last year, we broke an SEC record for number of pitchers drafted, and I think we actually have a chance to challenge that this year, with the pitching staff. And so, yeah, it's a good time for a lot of our players, and we had our meetings the day after the celebration and feel pretty calibrated on where everybody's at. And obviously there's some things you don't know until they happen in real time. And, just a lot of good communication. As far as the recruits, probably as talented a high school class as I've ever had. So might get bloodied a little bit there, to be perfectly honest with you. And I don't know what pro baseball did, but there just seems to be a heck of a lot more money in the draft this year than there's ever been. And that's not necessarily a great sign for college programs that recruit like elite talent. So we've been working though. It's a good group of guys, good families. And if you turned on the TV this year and saw this freshman class show up at LSU and do what they did, it's a good motivator, to get guys here. And we just try to educate them and let them know the closest place that you can go to the big leagues is the box, for the next 2 or 3 years. And hopefully some of them decide to do that and pair up with this group of really good returning players that we're going to have.
Jared, you got
Coach, Coach, I'm glad you kind of mentioned that because I don't know, man. I could be thinking this on my own. It's just kind of what I see, my 30,000-foot view of things right now. But it seems to be that there's a lot more money, a lot more attention, a lot more of eyeballs that are put on college baseball these days. Obviously, you guys win it. You are on MLB Network. Got players in the studio on MLB Network. Things are being pumped over social media a lot more. How much of this are you able to use, or do you try to use in like your recruiting pitches? Because, like you said, at a program like this, which right now over the last 35 years, and you're a huge reason as to why, it is the best college and or professional program that there has been anywhere in America. Just hands down. If we're going to talk about championships and what's happened, that's been it. How much do you kind of use stuff like that in your recruiting tip in terms of how you get guys here and what they're able to do in terms of visibility and production and turning themselves into professional ball players?
Yeah, first off, thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate you saying that. Secondly, it's everything. Like, for me, this has to be a mutually beneficial relationship for the player and the program. competing to do what we did, 10 days ago or whatever it was now, every year. And that's what we're trying to do here. But how we get there is my focus, and how we get there is to develop players to achieve their dream of being major league players one day. A lot of people get to be draft picks. Very few people get to be major league players. And this environment prepares you for that better than any environment in the country relative to the stage, the coaching. I believe we have the best coaching staff in college baseball, and knock on wood, I think we're holding that together in its entirety for the first time since I've been here. So super fired up about that. Not being the head coach, the pitching coach, the recruiting coordinator, the director of operations by myself this summer. Good.
Yeah, it must feel good.
Yeah. But between the environment, the coaching, the plan, like I just said, of, hey, this is about development. It's not the program if you like baseball. Baseball's got to be your deal. You got to want to be a major leaguer, and you got to be all in on doing what the team needs to accomplish what we just accomplished, for the second time in 3 years. And we had a group this year that I'm super proud of that they did that. And now they get their kind of flowers or individual awards with the Major League Baseball draft. And a lot of them are prepared now. It's their time to go do it. So I'm excited for them. It's good time in their life, great representation of our program. And we want to have it both ways.
Yeah. Coach, you talk about development. When you got here, obviously you had to go out there and you were heavy in the portal to kind of replenish the roster. And over time, it's felt like, and I think ultimately this is something you've talked about on this show, is you want to be able to bring in high-quality talent in the high school level, develop them, keep them here for multiple years, and sprinkle in some transfer guys to kind of fill out some of those gaps. And early on, it felt like it was transfer heavy to kind of get you where you needed to be. But it feels like you've gotten the recruiting classes that come in over the last few years, and now you have a lot of those freshmen and sophomores that were huge contributors on this team, and they're going to be leaders for this team for next year. A lot of those guys are coming back. You have a lot of guys that had significant roles this year, and you have another really good recruiting class coming in. Is that something that it feels like this is the first time in a long time that you have guys that are returning that have had serious contributions, and now you feel like you don't have to really rely as much on the portal as far as, hey, let's go replenish the entire roster. Now we just kind of sprinkle the guys that we want to get in. Do you feel that way?
Well, it's an interesting topic. I think if you look at when we showed up, there was some really good foundational position players here, like as good as you could ask for, like with Dylan and Trey. And then we sort of lucked out, I guess, with Beloso's knee injury. Dugas decided he wanted to come back. So those are some really good foundational players, but we really were not where we needed to be on the mound.
Right.
Like we just weren't, And so, yeah, you go get, Paul Skeens and Thatcher Hurd and Christian Little, and 12 months later, you win a national championship. And so we could be a little more specific. And then, after you win it, then we were replacing a lot of those innings again. And, you go get, Luke Holman, Gage Jump. How sweet is that? Tommy White and Gage Jump in the Futures game.
Yeah, awesome.
And then Paul Skeens is going to start the All-Star game again. So it's like, how about that? You got two dudes that were just here 12 months ago, the Futures game, and then the starter probably again for the All-Star game. They've all played here within the last 24 months, and there they are. So there you go. That's what I was just talking about,
right.
Development for Major League Baseball. So that's sweet. But yeah, this freshman class, I think we had 7 players on the 27-man roster in Omaha that were freshmen, and that was by far the most in the tournament. So I thought that was great, and all those guys are going to be big contributors. And then you have to do the high school thing well, because then you're not hostage to what's available in the portal. Because there's not, Anthony Ionson's not out there right now. It's not, you know what I mean? So luckily for us, you got Kason Evans, you got William Schmidt, you got Cooper Williams, you got Maverick Rizzi. Maybe a couple of those draft eligible guys come back, which we certainly hope that they do. And so you got a good foundation of the pitching staff, so you can be a little more picky about what you put together. We're obviously losing a good chunk of the position players. So we were able to pick up a couple hitters, prior to the College World Series that we think can complement the returning guys that we have well. And now we're kind of getting down to where we can be super specific about what we're trying to do. And we still got a few things we got to do to have a team capable of competing for another championship. So that's just kind of how it goes. But I want the high school thing to be the foundation of it because I want to have a program. Like I said this last year, sometimes it feels like you're building teams instead of programs. And I don't want to lose that program element of it. And I think, when you have Derek Curiel, National Freshman of the Year, Cason Evans, Freshman All-American, William Schmidt was 7-0. Love John Pearson when he comes up to the plate. I think Kate Arambidi might be the best player in the program at some point. Mentioned Rizzi, mentioned Williams. Like, I'm super pumped that we'll have all those guys. And then obviously, Milam, Brown. I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah, but just thinking off the top of your head, it allows you to be a little more specific, and then everybody's got to keep getting better. And so first day of school, we'll be back at it.
That's it.
Coach, with where the tournament ends in terms of the summer, the draft, and before school starts, and there's still such a window right there, I kind of want like your TED talk on like what the portal is and when it opens and how tough it is. And it's not, let me cry over sour milk, right? Like, you're one of the best programs in the country. You just won a national championship. But at the same time, like, those should be the most important times where you're zeroing in on your team and you're having to split that time trying to fill your team for next year. Also, while trying to play in other teams. Can you just talk about like that window, and if there was a better way to do it, how would you see it being done?
I don't know that there's a better way to do it because when you get to Omaha, there's only 8 teams playing. There's 292 teams recruiting.
Yeah.
So like it is what it is. The best kind of problems. I will say, I made a conscientious effort. Like this time around, like there was no divided mind for me. I mean, I called a few players and I said, hey, look, if you can't wait, by all means, move along. But watch the game tonight and tell me if you think this is the best place in the world to come play. Yeah. And I said this and people were laughing at me, but it's like, if you're a pitcher right now, you don't want to come here. Like you're
out to lunch.
You're out to lunch, Lloyd. That's right. The draft signing bonus deal that we've accumulated over the last couple of years, and obviously it's going to go up about $12 million real quickly when this draft starts with Cade and Anthony and Chase, $14 million between the three of them. So that's sweet.
Not bad.
I feel real proud of what we've done on that side of the ball, and with Coach Yeski and Jamie and Isaac Trujillo, our trainer, and Chris Martin, our strength coach, and Carlene Pick, our mental skills coach. Just have those guys surrounded, and it's been awesome to see the results, and it's led to exactly what we just talked about again, championships and, Major League Baseball, dreams. It's pretty cool.
Coach, obviously the portal is a big conversation. We kind of mentioned the additions. I'm not asking specific players, but as far as like needs and additions that you want to bring in to complement the guys that you have returning, you've brought in a bunch of left-handed pitchers. I don't know if that's necessarily a conscious effort or if it was just, hey, this is best available. You've brought in some bats, some other infielders. Are there any other specific, areas of concern that you're trying to fill throughout the course of this portal season, or is it just kind of, hey, let's just see how this draft plays out and then we go from there?
Yeah, no, everything is by design, nothing by chance. I mentioned, I don't know that real frontline, Paul Skeens, Luke Holman, Gage Jump, Anthony Ianson is out there. Maybe he is, and we're certainly talking to a few guys, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, and we want to make sure we have the ability to match up. Luckily for us, we have a really good foundation of pitchers returning, and just really believe in left-handed pitching and left-handed hitting, as I've told you guys before. So yeah, that was part of a priority. I think, we still feel like we need to add a little bit on the mound, and then, impact position players. We feel great about the catching. Obviously, like I just said, I think Cade Arambidi is going to be the best player in the program at some point. And then, Omar Cerna, pulling his name out of the draft, that was huge. So yeah, two really good catching options right there. Eddie Ammon's returning. And then the good news is about all those guys, they can hit. And so they can impact the first base, DH, maybe even third base, mixture. So I'm happy about that. I'm pleased with the returning players. You would think it's just automatic. You win a national title, you have this unbelievable team dynamic that everybody's going to return. And I think we had a pretty good return rate on the guys that were in Omaha. So I'm happy about that. Gives you a good foundation. But just impact that fits what we have. You got obviously, Derek, you got Jake, in the outfield, Milam at shortstop, and man, what a postseason he had again. That just completely changed our team when he took the caliber of at bats that he did.
2 years in a row. 2 years in a row he's done that.
Yeah, he did, and I'm really proud of him for this one because I think there's some staying power in some of the adjustments that he made that'll elevate him to be one of the best players in the country. He already is, in my opinion, one of the best players in the country, but elevate him to be one of the best players in the country next year. Tanner Reeves, I thought he was a really, underrated contributor to this team. Yeah. And, he started the regional final game that we won, which was probably the biggest game of the year, honestly, the Little Rock game, looking back on it now, and started game 2 against West Virginia, started a game in Omaha. So we got some real specific things for him to work on. I mentioned John Pearson, so I think there's some good foundation, and we still need to do a little bit here, but we're getting closer, and that's a good feeling because it's a little chaotic when you're playing that deep, and everybody else is hosting visits and all that. And trust me, I'll take Omaha all day, every day, and they can host visits, but we're about caught up, I think. Not quite, almost there.
You talked about the guys you bring back and the group of guys and the chemistry that you had. You talked about Eddie Yemen. Obviously, he comes in here and he wants to play. He gets redshirted, and everybody has a specific role on this team. And he wasn't playing, but you always saw him. At least I did. I always noticed him on the field because he was always on the top step. He was always the kind of the biggest cheerleader, and he was kind of the biggest encourager. And honestly, he had the most impressive moment of anybody whenever Barry Jones had the walk-off and he ran from the entire dugout to the outfield with the Gatorade jug the whole way, which I imagine is not light, and he pours it on him. It feels like everybody bought in. It feels like he bought in. I know you said he's coming back. You're excited for him to come back. Can you talk about him and just the impact that the guys who accepted their role and what their role was on that team and how important that was for y'all this year?
Yeah, happy to. And I think it's probably an undertold, underappreciated, undervalued part of what made this team special. And Eddie is certainly that. Like, when I recruited him, I actually went and I met with him and was kind of like right in the middle of whether we should bring him or not. And after spending an hour with him, it's like, this is the exact guy we need in the program.
Yeah.
And he had a really good year at Dayton, and he has some good skill that hopefully we'll tap into this year. But the character piece was a big reason that we brought him here. And it played out in a big time way. And that was a good example of it. And he's pretty jacked, so actually carrying the jug out there, he was probably all right.
Yeah.
But something I realized I was doing is I was having these individual meetings with the players. I kept talking to all of them about how they not just accepted the role, but how they embraced it and owned it in a way that was beneficial for the team.
Yeah.
And there's so many guys on the team that could have played bigger roles, and we might have ended up in the exact same spot. I mean, I really believe that.
Right.
But, you can only play 9 at a time. You can only pitch one guy at a time. And yet these guys were so together. It makes you really proud as a coach. Like, we all have this vision of culture and team and consistency and strength and mindset. And these guys, I don't know if they have a peer in that. Like, because, I mean, we were really, really consistent. I mean, we had a tough weekend at Auburn, which was one of the best teams in the country. But, man, outside of that, pretty darn good. And that team attitude and toughness was how that happened.
Coach, I'm glad you talked about that because I've hinted at stuff like we obviously, we're not inside your walls. We don't get to be in there, but we were fortunate enough to be on a championship team. So we got to see what some of those ingredients and things like that kind of look like. And that was one thing that always resonated with me being in 2 different locker rooms, was seeing how selfless guys got and how bought in they were to what they were asked to do. When you put a collection of talent together for a team, and then you obviously hope and you think that that collection of talent will do the thing that teams need to do to get over the hump. Is there, and I don't really know if it will be the same thing that you look for year in and year out, but I guess specifically with this 25 team, was there like a certain point or something during the year where you're like, that's different? I think something like that could play huge for us down the road because that's what championship teams do.
Yeah, I think there was a few things that stuck out to me. Number one, after we lost our first game to Omaha, and we'd played pretty dominant through like the first 5 games, and and then we lost a game maybe we shouldn't have. Weird day with the wind blowing in and that sort of deal. And we actually had to play a doubleheader right after that. And I kind of challenged them like, hey, a lot of times you know what you have right after you lose your first game of the season and how you respond to that. Well, we went out and we won 12-1, played great. And then after that, we won 17 games in a row.
Right.
And some of those we dominated, played at a really consistent clip. And then some we won some really close games where we came from behind, we won in extra innings, 1-run games, all of those types of things. And I remember thinking like, okay, like there might be better teams out there, but I like how this is going. And then we ended up, that streak, I think we've got broke at Texas and we lost 2 in a row. They beat us in the series, and which was a very beneficial series for us. Like I learned a lot about what we needed to do from that series. And then we won like 9 in a row right after that.
Yep.
We swept Mississippi State, playing late at night, all those types of things. And then you're looking up and it's like, wow, we've won 26 out of 28 against a pretty good schedule. Like, man, there's something to this. Well, then we got we got swept in 3 tough games at Auburn. Like, they didn't blow us out, but they beat us. And then, we responded well to that. So every time they got challenged, like, we got off the mat quickly and didn't really spiral or those types of things. And so it's like that consistency is kind of the hallmark that I'm really proud of, because you're going to get bloodied in this thing. It's baseball, number 1. It's the SEC, number 2. Nobody's getting through it perfectly, but I thought they did about as good a job as you could to respond into adversity, and there was no complacency ever. Like, I felt like they had this quality of like, and I say this to them, but it's really hard to get to this. It's like, we're not validated by our record or what anybody says about us, but like, can we do this college baseball program thing as good as it possibly could be done in every facet of it? And I thought they were really bought into that, and I think it showed in their ability to be consistent.
Yeah, and I think.
Go
ahead, Jay.
I just want to throw like a little pointer in there because there was a stretch this year for y'all. To me, I think it started with maybe the Mississippi State series. Yeah, that's exactly when it was. It was those 2 late rain delays that went into the next morning, and then it had to travel to Louisiana Tech, and then you had to travel to Oklahoma pretty deep into the year where it was still pretty cold. And like, if you looked at the stats through that, there was nothing that stuck out. Nobody got super hot. Nobody threw 9-inning shutouts. It was just win after win after win. And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of stuff that 18 to 22-year-old kids, you can go. There's a lot of time at the ballpark. You get tired, long days. You got to come right back. You travel right after that. A lot of that could go just not well. You could just find yourself finding a way to lose in those games. And sure enough, through that stretch, it was just win after win after win. And I was like, That's different. You don't really see that from kids that age. It's just a different thing.
Yeah, and what I liked about that is that we won in a lot of different ways. Like we had some really good offensive performances, jumped on some people, and then some. Obviously, the starting pitching with Cade and Anthony was great, and then some it was turn it over to the bullpen, and Kaysen at Cowan was lights out. And then there was another stretch in there. We played Alabama, who I thought was really good. We played Tennessee, who was a super regional team. And we played A&M, who was the #1 team in the country to start the year. And then Arkansas, who was the most talented team in the country, in my opinion, and obviously finished third in the country. And through that, like, those teams make it hard on you. I don't think we necessarily played great, but we were one. Like, we came out of that stretch on the positive side of it. And I kind of, at that point, was like, all right, like, let's just make sure we're lined up right going into the postseason. And I feel really good about this team's chances. And I remember, I want to say it was after the Arkansas series, we started talking about the postseason. I was like, hey, man, you just went through this stretch. It's wide open. Yeah. This is going to have nothing to do with anything other than who plays the best. And that's going to be a reflection of our preparation and our mindset. So let's keep tapping into that, because that's our strength. And they did it. And so to see it manifest itself in 5-0 in Omaha, 8 straight wins to win it, Game 7 win in the Super, like, very, very proud of that, and really always will be.
Coach, there's a couple, saying on this topic, there's a couple things that really stood out, obviously, that goes to what you're saying. 9-3 in one-run games, which I think is unbelievably hard to do. Right, but three of the top teams that you've played all year, Tennessee, Arkansas, you played Arkansas, 3 of the top games, Arkansas twice. You were down by multiple runs back into the game, and you were able to come back. Obviously, Tennessee down 3 in the 9th, walk-off, crazy game. Arkansas, same thing, and then Arkansas again in Omaha with that wild finish of the game. To me, that shows more about your team and about how you can overcome those and the character of the guys on your team. And you did it 2 times in the regular season, and you did it again in the biggest stage against Arkansas. And I just think that goes to what you're talking about right now, is the character and preparing yourself and winning games in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, I think the close game thing, it comes down to, I boil it down to like 3 things, like fundamentals, win and lose one-run games. And I think we broke the LSU record for fielding percentage this year, which I'm super proud of that. Like, that's awesome. And I thought we played great defense all year. So fundamentals, and then 2 is your bullpen. Can you put up zeros when the other guy has their best guy in the game at that time too? And you have to hold serve or match. And, obviously, Zach and Kaysen, did that for us really, really well, and other guys as well. And then, power and clutch hitting. And so, we won the game on a homer by Jared against Tennessee, and then clutch hitting is how we got back in the Arkansas game, and a sac fly by Ethan Fry. So I think we had the perfect ingredients to be really good in close games. And I think it literally just played out that way.
Because there's always storylines throughout the course of the season that maybe don't go or aren't known about until after. Right, and I think one of your stalwarts in your lineup, and a guy that was as consistent as they come, and Danny Dickinson all year, came out after the World Series that he was playing with a broken hamate bone, and you never saw him complain. You never saw him act like something was wrong. He just kept doing the things he did and played outstanding defense. Talk about him a little bit and how important he was in that stretch run, even when he wasn't 100%.
Yeah, that was something else. So the first game of the NCAA tournament is always one of the most important ones. First game of the regional. We're playing Little Rock, who obviously was a really quality team by how they played here in this regional. He had 2 homers in that game. We won 7-0. It was one of his best games of the season. And I actually saw this happen. Like, he fouled a pitch off, and I saw him shake his hand, and I go, man, I really hope that's not his handmate.
Yeah.
I actually saw it when it happened, but he didn't say anything. He was actually in the post game with me. And then the next day, we beat Dallas Baptist 12-0. He did not say anything about it, but he didn't really look right, if that makes sense. Yep. And then the next morning he came in and said, He did the x-ray as a broken hamate bone. He's like, Coach, I came here for the postseason. I do not want to hurt the team, but if you think I'm better than whatever the next option is, I will find a way to play. Wow. And I just said, hey, like, this dude's a stud, man, in every facet of things. And I was like, let's go for it. And I said, if I feel like I need to make a move at some point, I'll make a move. But for now, like, we're rolling as is. And Isaac Trujillo, our trainer, is like an unsung hero of this thing. He doesn't get enough credit. But he got him treated properly and taped up properly. And I mean, he was in so much pain, but he was still trying to take BP and stuff. And it was like, it would like make me uncomfortable when he would swing in BP and stuff. I'm like, man, you sure you just don't want to go like 4 really good bolts in the game and call it a day? Like, right. And then we started developing like, okay, when we were going to bunt with him or try to bunt. And then, I slid him down in the order, and we had enough good hitters. So like we kind of gradually did it from 3rd to 5th to 7th to 8th, and nobody really picked up on it, and which was awesome. And then, maybe the hit of the World Series was his bunt in the first game against Arkansas.
No doubt.
And we got the 3 runs, and somehow he managed to get 6 hits in 5 games in Omaha. 2 of them were drag bunts. And he played flawless defense as always. Like, so awesome, man. Like, I mean, our thing for the year was toughen together, and it's like, if that doesn't epitomize, physical toughness, I don't know what does. And I was so relieved when I finally got to say something afterwards. Like, right. I mean, like, hey man, lay off my man. The dude has been playing with a broken hand and played pretty darn good from my chair through that time.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, it's a testament to, I guess, the mad scientist you are, where nobody notices that Daniel Dickinson is slowly just moving down in the order because you create these lineups and people are like, I guess I just trust whatever Jay's going to do, because people would always try to set a lineup that they were going to see for the weekends. Like, it's going to change in 3 every game. And so that's probably a testament to you and how you put your lineups together.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. I was so like, it was like I planning for somebody to break their hand, and so I just scrambled the lineup all year.
Exactly.
Just in case somebody broke their hand, so nobody would notice. So,
it's called thinking ahead.
It worked out. It worked just according to plan, right there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of.
Coach, so obviously you win, 2nd time in 3 years. Knowing you over the last 4 years, you're never obviously content or satisfied. You're always back to work. What's next for you over these next few months before school starts, and what's next for the guys? Guys in summer ball, I'd imagine, and some guys, I'd imagine, are taking the summer off. What's next? What's the plan before school starts up in August?
Yeah, it's been really busy. Then that's why the championship celebration deal on the field was amazing, and I really try to memorialize it in my mind, because I know those are special and they don't happen all the time, and just because it's happened twice in 3 years, that was great, and just that was awesome to celebrate, and the fans and the hotel was awesome. I mean, it was so crazy. Once I finally got up to my room, I was like, I'm not going back down there again. Right. So that was awesome. Great flight home. I think you guys were at the celebration. That was awesome. This is as good a night as you could have. And, all the while, it's just you got to catch up. And, there's been a lot of that. We've got meetings done with the players to kind of get them on to the next thing. We had 3 guys that were selected for the USA baseball thing with Kason Evans, Derek Curiel, and Stephen Milam. But we made a decision collectively, and they made a decision, they coming off of Omaha, it probably wasn't best to dive right into that.
Yeah.
Which I supported fully. So you got things like that going on. And then, the portal and draft coming up and having decisions. So, we got some recruiting things, going on right now. Had a couple visits today. Coach Simpson out, evaluating another pitcher player, and then you know, we get a dead period for 3 days, so, you know, no campus visits, but we got to get on the horn for that. As far as the players, it's kind of what everybody needs. Like, you know, we wanted Cater and Beatty to get up to the Cape Cod League and start playing. He's obviously going to have a huge role, you know, going forward here these next 2 years. And he did a great job in the role that he had this year. I mean, an outstanding job. You know, we won several SEC games with him starting behind the plate. He's got some power, hit some homers. I'm really excited about that for him. Maverick Rizzi's going to throw a few innings up there. I think he's going to throw 4 times over 3 weeks and then call it a summer. John Pearson is up in the Northwoods League playing for the Lacrosse Loggers. So excited for him and that. You know, we got some of those young pitchers we have some really good training plans for. William Schmidt, Cooper Williams, that are super specific to them. So you kind of got all that going on with recruiting and, you know, I think our administration's planning for the team to go visit the White House, which I'm fired up about because somehow we got shut out on that in 2023. I wasn't too happy about that. So we're going to the White House. So that's pretty awesome. And then, just kind of onward and, you know, trying to find pockets of time to, like I said, not celebrate, but make sure we lock in, remember what we did. And you got to get to the next thing. That's life as we know it now. So trying to do both those at the same time.
Yeah, I think you
Coach,
did that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, man, like three trips to the national championship series. The first one was obviously a little different from the second one, and sort of, I guess, in terms of fanfare, if you will. Going into it for the third time after experiencing it in 2023, was there like moments where you were just like, and I don't want to say like zone out from like the task at hand, but like where you're able to just kind of like just take a couple mental snapshots and be like, this shit's a little different, man, and then just keep kind of pushing on.
Yeah, like one of my favorite moments, and it happened in 23 too, is, you know, they announce you before the first game of the championship series, and you're standing on the foul line, and they do the national anthem, and it ends with the home of the, and everybody says Tigers, and feels like the place is shaking. And I just remember going like, man, this is sick. Like, this is so awesome. And just very grateful. I will tell you, probably like the most emotional I got was when we won the Arkansas game. And like, I put my hands on my head, like after a few seconds after it was over, the guys are like running around in center field. And like, I was just like, man, nobody gets a night like this one time in their lives. And like, we've had 2 in the last 3 years in the exact same situation. And then you're thinking like Jared Jones and like all the work, like, you know, he's one of the first players I called when I got the job to make sure he was going to stay locked in here, and then working together on it. And, you know, him not being in the lineup the last time we were there, and he came back to like do that. Like, I mean, that was the whole thing. He wanted us to be in Omaha with him, like leading this thing. And I mean, I just remember being like, this is unbelievable. Like, I can't believe that just happened. It was just like super grateful. Like, that was one where I kind of took it in again and was like, and I have so much respect for Arkansas. Like, they were so talented, and they're just so good. They're so good as a program. And, you know, I think I've said this before, like when I came here, like everybody's good in our league. Everybody's good. But I felt like that was one program we definitely had to try to catch. Yeah. And like, so I thought that was probably the coolest moment of the whole series for me. And then honestly, like in the championship series, I never allow myself to go there to like what could or what is about to happen. And like, that was like our whole theme for the series. And it's like, if I'm telling the players not to do that, like I can't do that. And so, and I will say, when we won, it was so different than 23 because it was 18-4 in the ninth inning. But I'm so like, one pitch at a time, we got to do it. And then Jordan Thompson made that unbelievable play for the first out of the ninth inning. And it was like, we're going to win the national championship. Like, holy cow, like lifelong deal. And in this one, the tying runs at the plate.
Yep.
You got 2 guys up in the bullpen. The leadoff hitter's on deck. The second guy is the first guy shortest faced. I'm looking to make sure the defense is good. And it's like I got Evans and Williams. Well, if this gets to game 3, like I probably have to have Evans available, but we got to go for it today.
Oh my God.
So all this is going through my mind.
Right.
They double play, we're the national champs, and like Josh Jordan, Jamie Tetko are like hugging me.
Yeah.
He's like picking me up, and I was like, "Holy, you know what?"
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Like it was just so different. Like I didn't even like process, "Hey, we're winning it," until we actually won it.
Yeah.
You know?
Coach, I'm truly so glad you gave like that kind of an answer, because I get asked the question a lot, like, what's the difference of playing like on a baseball field or playing on a football field? And I try to tell people, because it's really hard for people to understand when there's 100,000 people in a football stadium, right? And I try to tell people the suspense that happens in a baseball game, that's not created on the football side. Like, people don't go from like dead silent to an absolute, I can't hear anything, it's so loud. And every hit feels unexpected. Every out feels unexpected. Everything feels like it's not supposed to happen. And then when it does, it feels like it's the biggest relief ever. Like, that's baseball when it comes to that kind of time. And I'm so glad you basically just personified all of that, because this is coming from a man that's as locked in as he can be in the situation and still tell you that, hey, I felt this roller coaster as well.
Yeah, totally. And you know what, the best thing that ever happened was we lost the game at Little Rock, because the next game, like, there was so much pressure in that game. Like, it wasn't, the game didn't start till 8:06 p.m. that night.
Right.
And I was like here at like 6:15 a.m. and like trying to figure out like how we're going to win and all this type of stuff. And we actually, something happened that day that really helped us on like the whole run of the postseason. And so that was what we needed. And then for the players, like the next weekend in the Super Regional, they're like, we're not going to game 3. Like, it's not happening. And then you get to the bracket against Arkansas, and it's like, we're not getting to the if necessary game. You get to the finals, and it's like, we're not getting to game 3, because nobody wanted to go through that again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that ended up being like the best thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was a magical ride for us as fans. I can't imagine what it was for y'all. Obviously, you know, the Alex Ball or the LSU baseball magic. If you're not a fan, or if you're not part of that program, and you're a opposing team, you look at it and you say, oh, that's just, you know, whatever. But it's a real thing. You saw it in the Arkansas game. You saw it in the final series, and so those ups and downs, that just makes it great. But it just feels like LSU's got a little different gear when you get into that situation. And so, you know, I think you personified that the way you explained it. With every fan was feeling the same way you're feeling it. You're just feeling it in a whole different way, because you were actually pulling the strings there. So it was an awesome ride, and congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I hope this is a team that's talked about for a long time. And, you know, you guys were a part of that in 2009. And that was, I mean, I wanted them to win so bad, because you win, it's like, it becomes like a forever team. And I felt like this team was worried, or they were worthy of that. Yeah. And, you know, almost to the point where it's like I had to stop thinking about it and just like help them do it. But I wanted them to do it so bad, because like, I don't know if they were the most talented team or the best team, but they were the best team this year in terms of how well they played as often as they did. And we talk about that a lot. Like, great teams, they just play near their capability often, and that's what these guys did.
Yeah. Well, Coach, like I said, it was a fun ride for us. We appreciate that. We're extremely happy for y'all. We're looking forward to next year. Enjoy the rest of your summer. I know that's obviously not a vacation for you, but at least you don't have to go and figure out how to manage and win a game for a few months, and you can kind of take a step back there. So enjoy the rest of your off season. Enjoy this recruiting season. Enjoy the next 2 weeks when the draft is about to happen, and celebrate with your guys, because it's very much deserved. And we'll obviously have you on the show here again soon, but we'll give you some time to give you a little break from Lloyd, so you don't have to see his face
No, I have.
for
I'll
for
text
that
him.
much longer. Yeah.
Yeah, he will text me.
Yeah.
Is he coming to the house this weekend for a little 4th of July celebration?
Yeah.
I don't think I love you, Lloyd. But I don't think that was
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. That means the world to that you said at least you thought about him for a split second there.
That wasn't a no.
Yeah, that's it. Coach, enjoy the rest of your night. Like I said, enjoy these next couple of weeks with some of these guys that are going to get much deserved draft picks and some money and enjoy their future. And we'll be watching from here, and we'll have you back on here soon.
cool. Sounds great.
Yep. Thanks,
See you
guys.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Congrats.
Thank you.